Yes, yes, yes. A special Happy New Year's Day episode of In the Paddock F1. Less than 70 days to preseason testing and the first race of the season. How about that, Michael?
Only 70 days. How about that? It feels like we just ended yesterday.
Yeah, less than that. Less than that. Till we get it on all over again. 24 seasons. The 2024 campaign. But we'll get into that later on in the episode. Let's get to other business here, sir. Where would you like to start?
Got a lot of business. We got a lot of business and a lot of doing, including some interesting stuff coming out of Mercedes from a new team, which is an old team, which is not really a new team. But that's pretty interesting in the Sauber situation. You have some drivers returning who we weren't sure if they were going to return into the Formula One spectrum, and it doesn't seem like we have much movement around the grid as far as teams are concerned, but a lot of other stuff going on, some rule changes or potentially, and a look towards the future as well. So, geez, where would you like to begin as we are in the brand new year? Happy 2024, everyone, and thank you all for listening. In the Paddock F1, of course, with Greeny and the Cheese. You had a list, a whole list of stuff that was irking you this off season.
Well, let's go into the minor rule changes to kick things off here. Petitions. That's a big one. If you want to put a petition in for, a penalty you received or place you finished in a race because of what, your competitor did or something like that. It used to be 14 days. Now it's only going to be 96 hours. Thank God for that. 14 days was utterly ridiculous. Ridiculous to put a petition in 2 weeks after the race was over. I mean, this happened this past year with your team there, Haas. They put a petition in after the U.S. Grand Prix. 2 weeks after. So they were in Brazil at this time. The FIA said, this is rubbish and we're not even looking at this, so threw that out. But if they did accept it, and then you had, you're going to have hearings and things of such. So you're talking, you could technically have, points positions change like a month and a half after race is concluded, which is utterly
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Hold on a second.
That's ridiculous.
You have to have a window. There's enough guys on every single squad, on every single team in Formula One to have enough eyes on the situation to be able to make a determination within several hours after the race if something's going on, and that's it. You have 24 hours to say anything, whatever you want to say about the race that happened, and you move on. The race ends. 24 hours later, the end of the period is over. If you want to extend it to like 36 for whatever reason that we might not understand, or even 48 for whatever reason, but it has to be a reasonable amount of time. It has to be a reason behind it. It can't just be an arbitrary amount of time. There can't just be a statute of limitations. These aren't crimes. All right, this is not a murder investigation where the statute of limitations has to go for like 5 years or 10 years. Interpol has to show up. It's either happened or it didn't. It's either on film or it isn't. And if it's not, that's tough shit. If you don't have it, you have whatever that time is. But I think it should be under 48 hours. You have enough eyes on your team. You have enough people around you in your inner circle to be able to make that determination fairly quickly. And the driver itself, after the race, you're not going to a driver directly after a race is going to give you a different story than they are 24 hours later. Just the adrenaline and everything else.
Absolutely.
So you give everyone a chance to settle, just as normal, and the teams a chance to settle, especially if they think they're wronged. They might be a little hyped up. Give you a night to sleep on it. literally, maybe 2, and that's about it. And you have to move on because at least if there's a back-to-back weekend, you get it in on like Tuesday morning while people are traveling, and gives you an opportunity by Friday to make a decision on what that might look like. Honestly, I think then you have by Friday.
I think that's even more fair than what the FIA is going on with 96 hours.
Yeah, I think it's just too long because then you start hearing other people's opinions. Either it happened or it didn't. Either it happened or it didn't. You don't need a committee of opinions and people on your team to justify it happening. Because I know why they do 96. And they do 96 because, well, if I'm going to say something, what's the reaction? It's a chess game. I don't want a chess game. It's black and white. Either something happened or something didn't.
They're also going to, the team's gonna have to provide evidence of this. Like they what was it, the Saudi Grand Prix in Jeddah, when they took Alonso off the podium and then ended up putting him back on the podium because they reversed the 10-second penalty that he was given for the team not serving the 5-second penalty for him starting outside of his grid space. So when they're serving that penalty, I think the jack was on the back of the car. They gave another 10 seconds. Well, when Aston Martin put in their, petition for it, they showed evidence in the past of teams having the jack on the car, serving the penalty, but not getting the additional 10. So then that 10-second penalty was thrown out, and then Alonso was then therefore put back on the podium. So the teams usually get video evidence when they're putting in a petition, most of the time. Not always. Like, I believe your team Haas really didn't have that much information or evidence, so that's why that petition was thrown out very quickly. But I think that's why they're giving him 96, which, as you said, and I agree with you, 48 is probably about all you should get, because you shouldn't, be putting this in 4 or 5 days after the race is over. That's insane, to be honest. I mean, that's completely
insane. At that
insane.
point, it feels like you're met.
The old rule was even more insane, that you had a fortnight to be able to put in, a request to have, to put a review in. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. To have
it feels like you're giving them
you give anybody 2 weeks time, you come up with all kinds of BS and crap.
Yeah.
With that. I mean, that's ridiculous.
It feels like you're giving them time to manufacture something, and you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars on the line here. So you wouldn't put it past anyone. Either you have the evidence or you don't have the evidence. Haas is the perfect example. Either you have it or you don't. Let's move on. Let's not bog everyone down with this nonsense. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I finish your thought.
And then also, in regards to the petitions, teams will now have to put down a deposit. So they got to put up cash with their petition. So I think that'll get rid of, some of the frivolous ones, to be honest, because you're not going to want to put up cash, and if you lose, you ain't getting that cash back. So you're definitely going to put something in there that you're not going to lose money on, to be honest. So I think that'll get rid of some. And then also, this is an interesting one, too, that I came across. The FIA goes and visits team facilities periodically to make sure there's no, funny business or things outside the rules that you're not allowed to do. With, wind tunnel testing and so on and so forth and things like that. So the FIA used to send a letter to you to give you 10 days notice that they were showing up. So if you were doing something wrong, you had 10 days to sweep that under the rug and hide it. And put it in that, back of that closet somewhere. That's no longer. The FIA is just going to show up.
Like immigration services.
So they're just going to show up. I'm sure that they'll give a warning, probably like, an hour or something like that, come. Teams usually, bring them there. So, you get like an hour notice to.
Surprise!
You're not going to be able to clean stuff up as quick as you were beforehand.
Surprise!
So you'll be able to see if there's probably any funny business going on. So, and they're not going to be able to also delay once they get there. So, once they show up there, 15, 20 minutes, they want to see the wind tunnel, you're going to have them in the wind tunnel to see what's going on. So I actually like that rule change. 10-day notice is like, that's like telling some a crime syndicate, oh yeah, we're going to come check out your building, but we're going to come there in 10 days. You're cooking meth in you got like a big meth operation or something. We're going to give you 10 days notice, so we'll just clean that all up. So when you show up, we're not going to see you're not going to see anything.
No, I don't think I got a meth operation going on in Braxley or anything like that. But I think the point being is, you don't call the mafia to say we're going to inspect your see what's going on, and let me know what date's good for you.
What's good for you, sir?
What's good for you?
What works for you? We're gonna come by, but what works for you?
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So no more of that. No. I think this is all precipice and hinging on the fact that they want to add an 11th team and what that process is going to look like. There's a lot of calls about being unfair.
I actually have something for you on that one myself.
Go ahead.
I actually have something for you on that one myself with the 11th team. Shouldn't Andretti just buy Haas or merge? I mean, Andretti and Haas have been a partnership in IndyCar before.
Yeah,
so why don't
absolutely.
they just merge?
For many years.
I mean, Haas needs the cash. Andretti will definitely bring the cash with him, so why don't you get that, and there's your American team.
Yeah, well, Haas got put in the worst possible position because so much of their funding came from private Russian companies, so that was just the biggest issue with Haas.
Well,
Plus, they stunk to begin with.
Well, they got MoneyGram. It's a pretty big sponsor.
It's a big sponsor, but as you saw last season, this was supposed to be a 6 or 7 team at worst, and they are riding the back of the pack once again. So,
well, you brought no upgrades the entire season.
You brought a few upgrades, but nothing.
They went like 3/4 of the year without an upgrade. Then they brought one, and it was absolute trash.
Well, it was absolute trash.
So what? One guy ran him, and the other guy didn't run him because it was
it was actually worse. The upgrade actually made them worse. But don't say they didn't bring upgrades. They did bring upgrades. It just made the team worse.
But it took forever to bring upgrades.
Yeah, I don't know if that was development. I'm assuming it's development, but.
I mean, look at a team like Mercedes who definitely didn't have the second best car on the grid. Let's face it, they finished second, but that car was not the second best car on the grid this season. Overall, the drivers probably put it there. I mean, the team made awesome strategy calls in a few races that definitely handed them better, points positions. Ferrari just completely screwing up their strategy, basically handing Mercedes a couple, podiums and things like that they probably should have been on the podium, but their strategy was just absolute trash. Fire that guy, please. Fire that guy. But a team like Mercedes, who definitely didn't have the second best car on the grid, their concept of the car changed it in the season. Not many teams are going to have the Cugnons to do that and to change your whole concept of your car mid-season. And then they continually brought upgrades. Haas brought 4 decent upgrades, and half of them were trash.
Yeah, I mean, especially the last upgrade, which was just a joke. It wasn't even an upgrade; it was a downgrade. Let's be honest.
That is correct.
It was definitely a downgrade. Yeah, I don't know, man. What a year, but really, it's just a mess. Listen, there's so much to talk about. We got a name change already for Sauber, January 1st. We got a new team already. We didn't even know about yesterday. We got a lot more to go, man. Holy moly. Greeny the Cheese in the Paddock F1. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for all your support. Mid-2023, the best year for us. So let's make 2024 even better, man. Back in a second. Yes! In the Paddock F1, Greeny and the Cheese. We're back. New year. New everything, man. Thanks again for making 2023 the best year that we've ever had on the show here, and we want to keep growing. So the way we keep growing, we don't ask for money, we don't ask for anything but your support. Email us in the paddock@gmail.com, show your support there, or just check out our episodes. Check out our episodes, leave a comment, leave a like. Check us out on YouTube. We haven't put much stuff out on YouTube, but we're going to get much more back as we hit into the 2024 season. So geez, we have a team change names several times. Alfa Romeo became Sauber, and now Sauber is changing its name. Did you hear this?
Yeah, what's it, Steak?
Steak.
I mean, I heard a rumor of this one a couple weeks ago, to be honest, because it's one of their main sponsors. So
it is one of their main sponsors, and it will make me hungry every single time I hear it.
It's not spelt like that, though.
I know it's not spelled like that, but I wish it was. It's Stake as opposed to Steak, which is, of course, the best type of steak. Little potatoes, a little gravy on the side, cream spinach if you'd like. For those who don't, no. He says no cream spinach.
You need a steak, a big-ass baked potato. Slap that big slab of sour cream on that boy, some chives. You want to throw some bacon and cheddar on that bad boy to kick it up another notch? Sure damn do it.
But no cream spinach.
No. There's no need for vegetables when you're having a big fat juicy steak. You need that and a big ass potato.
That's not the kind of steak we're talking about here. Does it matter? A rose by any other name would be as terrible as Alfa Romeo was this year. How are we feeling about Steak or Sauber, Alfa Romeo? Keeping the same drivers, so the same driver pair, it looks like will be in for next year. How are we feeling about this new squad?
They'll be in the same place they were. No. Same
really, junk, different name.
They probably just they just don't have the funding. For one, that's a problem. And really, that team's changing in a couple years anyway when Audi takes it over again. So it's going to be there until probably Audi takes it over, and they get that big backing and funding. It's also rumored that might fall through too. So,
yeah, absolutely wild. Yeah, absolutely wild with these F1 teams. All this money goes into it, and these teams come up, and then they falter. You need a little bit of luck or a lot of luck.
No, you also need cash. You need a lot of cash. You need your sponsors.
You need luck to get the sponsors to have cash.
You need a big backing. Well, like the Red Bull has giant backing from the Red Bull company. Mercedes has all of Mercedes behind it. Ferrari has Ferrari behind it. These are also big brand names. Alfa Romeo it's a brand name, but it's also been a brand name that's, usually you make fun of an Alfa Romeo because they usually breaks down on you. It's kind of the joke with it. So, I mean, there's that. But the Sauber team they haven't been a competitive team really since BMW left. And they have the BMW backing.
100%.
I mean, it's F1. It's like, what is it? What is the breakdown? I think it's something like $10 million for half a second. To move your car down half a second, it's about $10 million of, aerodynamic work and wind tunnel work and all that stuff combined. It's about, $10 million for a half second. So you don't have that big, giant backing. Your teams, that's why the teams at the back of the pack are why they're at the back of the pack. The funding isn't there. I mean, AlphaTauri or whatever the heck they're going to be called coming up. Here's another team name that's going to be changing soon too. The rumor is it could be something like Racing Bulls or something like that. But I mean, they're going to have a bigger partnership with Red Bull, which is basically Red Bull's junior team, which in my opinion is a little shaky in a sense. I mean, it's a little bending the rules in a way. I mean, how can one team have their own junior team like that? And, apparently AlphaTauri's going to be getting this year's Red Bull car next year.
Well, let's
so
get
they really
into
don't
that.
have to develop anything. I mean,
Let's get into that. We do have 10 teams, and we often see 5 teams dominant over 5 teams that aren't. Pretty much, we see a little more parity this year with 6, sometimes even 7 teams getting in the mix this year. But generally, it is. Would it be the worst thing in the world if we had a full split of A team and B team, but riding on the same grid? It could save money in the long run, which these cars are an absolute fortune to put on the track, and the drivers are getting more and more expensive every single year. The popularity of the sport is growing every single year, but there's an apex to all of this. There is a limit at times to the exponential growth that's been going on. Does that make sense? Or do we keep everything separate and that's it? You join the team, you're going to stink because you need billions of dollars, sir. Billions of dollars.
I mean, that's kind of the way F1's always been. I mean, the A team, B team. I mean, that would probably help a lot of other teams, but I think I don't know if that really works either, because then you really only has 5 teams, and the other 5. The secondary teams aren't going to be given the same quality of stuff as the A team is. So I mean, it's almost the same as we're. I don't think it would really work. I don't think it should be an A and a B team. I mean, it should be your own entity, by yourself. You're supposed to build your own car by yourself. You're supposed to. Only thing that can be shared is the power plants. Because that's probably even more of the big part of development, is to develop the power plant itself. That's where the billions and billions of dollars come in to develop. That's coming up in a couple of years when they redo the thing again in 26 with the new power plants. That's why all these other engine suppliers possibly are coming in at that point, because they'll be more at a even spot than most other teams, than popping in now and having to come up with something as a concept for that to throw it in quicker. So I think everybody should have their own entity and not be having your A and B team. I think that gives, if a team has that, I think that gives them an advantage, an absolute advantage.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You have double the amount of resources.
You can almost be, I'm sure it absolutely happens that they're, sharing aerodynamic, details and, testing results and things like that. I'm sure that's AlphaTauri and Red Bull are definitely sharing that.
Of course they are. Of course they are. And they get to double up in a lot of areas where other teams don't, where a Ferrari is on their back foot. They don't have the resources that Red Bull has, and Red Bull is absolutely dominating the sport right now. And is the AlphaTauri end of it one of the reasons that they are so dominant? It could be. It could be. And AlphaTauri definitely had their moments too.
I think the real thing is that, to be honest with that, I think it's because Red Bull has Adrian Newey. I think that's a big thing.
Well, that
Adrian
and all the
Newey
money
is
the best drivers or the best driver at least. It's a tough one. Listen, Red Bull really, really just has the resources. It's like watching the Yankees in like the 1950s.
Well, not as much anymore because of the cost cap. I mean, they don't have that as much anymore because of the cost cap. But I think that's definitely. I think that's where you've gotten a lot more parity this past season, is because I think the cost cap has come into that. That the teams at the front don't get as much wind tunnel time and testing time as the teams lower down. I think that's actually worked out a bit. I mean, it hasn't brought. Red Bull's concept is how many teams in the grid developed their cars from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, when their cars started looking more similar and similar to what the Red Bull looked like. How many teams did that this year?
Well, of course. You gonna? They're kicking your ass. Of course you're gonna.
But that's the design of Adrian Newey. That's his design concept. I mean, definitely are probably getting more, information just because of having the double teams there.
Listen,
to share components and things. So
you hear it in every single league, and every single sporting league, and in business as well. And in my business as well. It's a copycat league. We've all heard that same phrase before. It's a copycat league.
Absolutely.
You look at what the best is doing, and you try to copy what the best is doing. So of course they're going to sit here and try to copy what Red Bull is doing. Red Bull's kicking their ass every single year now, just like everyone tried to copy what Mercedes was doing until the new era of cars came along. So there's one thing you can't copy, and you said there was a lot of parity this year, and that is true outside of one factor, and that's Max Verstappen. And Max was just so much better than the rest of the field that you ask those in F1 if there was parity. I'm sure everyone would say yes, outside if you were chasing Max Verstappen on any given Sunday. And I think you might say there's not as much parity if you were coming in second, which many different drivers, I forget how many drivers actually came in second or actually landed on a podium this year, but I think the most drivers we've seen in a while. As far as that parity goes, we saw, Mercedes have some time in the sun, and then they backed up. Ferrari was good for a while, and they backed up. McLaren was good for a while. Aston Martin was good for a while. So it was a very year parity that way, unless you were trying to chase down Max Verstappen. Then there was a lot less parity. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, that car won the Red Bull this year was absolutely brilliant. And it was totally geared for Max Verstappen. I mean, you could go back and pick any race you want to pick. Go watch in-car cam footage for those races. And watch Max Verstappen when he turns the wheel in. There's zero adjustments. There's not the little, shake back of the, trying to get the car under him again, understeer or the oversteer, correcting the car mid-corner or whatever. Max Verstappen is just in smooth. You go watch every other car, and there's always minor adjustments through the corners.
Yeah, just bring up the side-by-sides.
The Red Bull and Max Verstappen did not. He could just put that car in and be gone. And that's why that car was absolutely ridiculous. And that's what everybody's trying to catch. But, I mean, if you turn the car and you have no adjustments, you don't have to do that much as a driver. It's like a dream. That's a dream to drive. That's what everybody wants. But you usually don't get that.
Yeah, his muscle memory around turns is just unbelievable.
Ease in, ease out. No biggies. No adjustments. No worrying about anything. I mean, it was just it's insane.
Yeah.
Design of that car was absolutely brilliant.
Also, Max Verstappen, I think, loves practice more than any driver that I've ever seen before. Man loves practice. Ironically, he loves practice because he feels that it's the only non-consequential time you're going to be on the track is during practice, which is true. But the fact that he whooped everyone's ass the last couple of years, I think that my favorite part of the track my favorite time would be whooping everyone's ass. But he loves practice, and he loves to practice, and it's for that reason. It's for that reason, so he can be that smooth on those turns and just know every single turn exactly how much torquage he's putting into each turn around the track, and that provides him with just little bits of seconds and little bits of time, and that's the difference. Amazing, and an amazing season for Max, and just to show you how good Max is, was just all the times that Sergio Perez, who finished second for the season, but didn't feel like it, right? If McLaren or Ferrari or Aston Martin or Mercedes or any of those four teams had any consistency this season, Sergio Perez would not have been second.
No.
Not have been second. But listen, we have a tiny little bit left put a big part left. You got something planned for this last segment. I don't know what you're jawing about, but we will be back momentarily, sir. Momentarily for our final segment of this one and the kickoff of the 2024 season. Green the Cheese and the Paddock F1. Back in a flash.
All right. Back in the Paddock F1. Green the Cheese. Should usually be Greentopia time, but we're not going there because we're not gambling right now.
Oh, we're always gambling. Every time you leave the house, you're gambling.
Gambling with your life.
Gamble. Listen, we don't want to take up too much time because I know, sir, you'll be sitting down New Year's Day watching your Reds, who will be playing any minute now, taking the pitch momentarily. So we don't want to keep you from that. So we're going to wrap up the year as we just did, and we're going to, I guess, begin the new year, taking a look at the calendar. Is that where we're going?
Sure. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So what's new this year on the calendar? Let's start there.
How about you bring it up, sir?
I could bring it up.
24 races. That's one. China's back on the schedule. I can't remember the last time there was a Chinese Grand Prix.
Pre-COVID?
Yeah, pre-COVID. 2020, 2019? I can't even remember. We're going back to Shanghai, though. Let's see, we're less than 70 days. I think the first race is the 29th of February, if I'm not mistaken. I think preseason testing is the 22nd, a week prior. So it's not that far off. It's actually, what? It's under 70 days. It's like 50-something days. Different groupings for races to be a little bit more, I think they're going for the more eco-friendly and sustainability aspect with the different, swings for the calendar to put things more, closer together, so you don't have to go for ridiculous travel distances between races in short periods of time.
They're trying.
Which in reality, it makes a damn lot of sense.
And there's your calendar, sir.
All right, so, as you see, you got, the typical, we're opening Bahrain, we're going to Saudi then next, which makes sense. Then we're going to Australia and Melbourne. And then from there, I think it was usually September, October for the Japanese Grand Prix. I think it's going to be April now. It's going to be a change. See what the weather is. I don't even know what the weather's like in Japan at that time of year. So we've always been racing in Japan late in the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It could be a little bit more rain, possibly. I don't know. Then we go to China. Then we, back to the only odd one there is, Miami's kind of at a place there. Then go back to, Europe for a good chunk. Then you got the American swing, and then ending Qatar moving a little bit later. So hopefully drivers aren't, passing out in their car or almost passing out in their car and having dehydration and everything else. So we move that a little bit later. So it's right next to Abu Dhabi, which makes sense. So instead of going from Vegas to Abu Dhabi to finish the year, you're going to go from Vegas to Qatar to Abu Dhabi. So it's a little bit, closer. I think they moved, Azerbaijan Grand Prix goes from, usually the first 7 races, it goes to round 17. So, a few little changes.
Yeah, I really don't love it. I don't know if the drivers love that last stretch. You got the 3 races over 3 weeks. And I know they really didn't love that Vegas to Abu Dhabi end of the year, especially with the week, because that's really, really tight. I'm sure they're going to feel the same way this year, not loving that. Vegas is a tough one. to schedule. Probably the hardest race on the calendar to actually schedule, just because everything that has to go into it. Singapore as well. Singapore's a really tough one to schedule, just because everything has to go into it. Where
I don't understand why. I think you should move the. I think the Vegas Grand Prix should be race 20. To be honest,
I think it's just about timing. It's just working with the city of Las Vegas. I think you're just working with the city of Las Vegas. That's your issue, because there's so much needs to be done. There's so much that goes on in Vegas, between the conventions, between everything, and they can't be if they're losing money or any other event is being messed with. That's on the calendar. That's being planned. It's going to be a real problem for F1. Las Vegas wants to continue the race and wants to continue this relationship, but they're not going to be able to do it if they have problems, and it has to be on their terms. It has to be on Vegas's terms.
Yeah,
Vegas is not impressed. They're not impressed with Formula One as a whole. Unlike some of these other circuits, most of the other circuits are very excited to have Formula One. Vegas is excited to have Formula One, but not to the level, especially everything that happened this past year and whatever class action lawsuits are still going on and everything else. But which is going to happen, and I'm sure they've been faced with a million of those before, where all their events that they hold. They are professionals at this stuff, and this is what they do. This is what Vegas does. So that's going to be on their time. I just don't. And they're going to dictate the dates, not Formula One or the FIA in this event. But it's just really, that turnaround from Vegas to Qatar to Abu Dhabi is tough on the drivers, especially towards the end of the season. That's the only thing I really don't like about this season, and that's a lot of feedback from the drivers as well. And then you got that Miami just floating out in space. You have China, and then you get 2 weeks off, and then you get Miami, and then you get another 2 weeks off. So you only got that one race over the course of a month. Logistically, again, that's probably a logistical thing as well. Outside of Austin, Miami and Vegas are both really tough races to put on logistically, working with both the cities and a lot of logistics, much more so than Austin.
You got a month break between Singapore and Austin, basically.
Yeah, a massive amount of time off there. So,
I mean, you could.
I think the schedule itself, it just seems, again, they're the ones running it. I know logistically they're able to set up and have a team in Qatar, already in Qatar before Vegas is even over. That's really the only way they're able to do that. And then keep the team out there, so as soon as Qatar launches, they're already over in Abu Dhabi setting up, getting ready for the next race. So I know it's a big stretch, but it's just tough for me. It's a tough sell for the teams, for the Formula One personnel, the non-team personnel, the FIA personnel. Just a lot. It's a lot of traveling, and a lot can go wrong. And if one thing goes wrong, it makes it really, really tough. But these are professionals. These are the best in the world, and I know they'll get it done. It's tough, and I know hearing just from not just the drivers, but from the Formula One, and not from the Formula One teams alone, but also from the FIA and the staff, and just the regular Joes, the regular folks, Janes and Joes that are just punching in and punching out. That last 3 races is going to be tough, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And good for them, and that's why they're the best in the world, because that's where they can pull the stuff off.
That's what they do. That's what they get paid for.
That's what they get paid for. Well, a lot of people get paid for a lot of things. A lot of people get paid for a lot of things. It's just logistically, it creates a pocket of things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
It just does. And, yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of these things, they're not, especially for when they're sending stuff around the world, they don't usually use the planes or an air, a shipping company. That stuff usually gets put in a container and put on a boat.
Absolutely.
It takes a while to get a boat. It takes a while to get a boat.
Yeah, no, they don't fly that stuff
across the ocean, so they're not.
All right, sir. Big finish. Let's finish it up. before we take a little break here, I'll be heading over to Europe, to Spain and Portugal for a few weeks there. You'll be home recovering from your surgery. Only the best to you. And for those of you who don't know, she's had a little bit of elbow surgery there on the left elbow. But I hear the doctors and nurses and staff have been taking great care of you, sir, and getting your rehab going in the right direction.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. So hopefully you'll be 100%.
It'll be a process.
And start getting back in the car there, because we all miss your driving videos there. So hopefully something else to look forward to in the next couple months here. But first and foremost, your speedy recovery. And a new season. We start on Leap Day this year. So we're February. So it's January. Next month with season starts.
Yep.
Season begins next month. So we're going to be out within the next 4 weeks with another episode for you, and probably definitely another episode or two before the season begins, and then we're right back into it. We're going to be starting our 4th season, and we'll have our 100th episode spectacular this year. Believe it or not, episode 100. I know Cheese can't believe that one, but we will be there. We'll be there this spring for the 100th episode, so please join us for that. And thank you all for tuning in, because every single time I turn on our counter here, we get more and more listens. We had the biggest December we've ever had. We didn't even put an episode out in December, and we actually had the biggest December we have ever had here on the program. The biggest off month we've ever had actually was bigger than some of our months we actually put episodes out. So again, thank you guys for listening, even when we're not in season. So it's really been amazing, and as probably shocking to myself, and even more so to Cheese. So thank you all for that. And any last words, sir, before we see you guys for preseason testing in only a few weeks?
I will catch you then. Let's get ready. Gear up. 2024 season. Around the corner.
And as always,
stay medicated, my friends.
We'll see you guys. Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year. Peace.
Peace.